All right, welcome to Ranting and Raving. I am Brian. I am the host of the channel. We're going to take a little bit of a step away from the usual sports and occasional video games content to talk about something a little bit more important. And if I'm being honest, I'm making this video more for me than I am for you, but I hope anyone who's watching this, I don't know if I can say enjoys it, but finds it interesting. Um, I'm intentionally not structuring this like it's a term paper in college. I do have a degree in political science. Um, I could do that. Not only is that weeks upon weeks of research and sourcing and a lot of really annoying crap, it's also just not really that interesting or informative to the non-academically inclined. And I don't mean when I say unacademically inclined that people are stupid. I mean academic papers are boring. They drag on, they hyperfixate, they reference the same 17 things 4,831 times. And that's just not the format I'm interested in producing here. So I am, to a degree here, going to summarize, and the key word here is summarize, the last 25 years in America. And for reference, I am 36 years old, so I remember all of this. I'm not 19 and asking my pappy how it went. I was here for everything I'm talking about, and again, I also studied a lot of this. The title of the video is America, How Did We Get Here? And the premise of that, like what is here? So, the most prosperous, powerful empire in the history of the world is teetering on the edge of self destruction, and not just because of the shift from a dubiously functional representative democracy to an autocratic fascist, Christo fascist regime. Um, it goes a little bit deeper than that because there's the how did we actually get here? How did we fail so hard that the most powerful empire and the greatest, strongest economy the world has ever seen um, is now in the dumps and is a global embarrassment, is a historical embarrassment, and we are closer to the fiction of idiocracy being reality than we are the fiction that we sell ourselves. America is the greatest country on earth. We're the best place ever. We're the bastion of freedom. Which, depending on who you are and how close your ancestors were to the equator, America's never been that place. But for the unmelanated like myself, certainly for a long time, this was a very free, very prosperous place. Um, so I'm going to break this into a few different segments. I'm going to be, like I said, fairly informal with this. Um, Again, intentionally. I have some notes that I'm going to go off of, but I do want to be largely summative and conceptual. Simply because I want to make an 8-hour video, and damn sure nobody wants to watch that. To me, I've broken the timeline of the last 25 years down to 10 inflections. So, various points throughout this video, I am going to define terms just for the viewers to know. Um, the reason I'm defining terms is because, as you will find, a lot of people will use the same language differently. Some people just don't know what certain words mean. Some people use words differently. A lot of words have colloquial meanings in different communities, things like that, and I'm just trying not to be misinterpreted. So, if you take that as me being pretentious or talking down, that's fine. You're allowed to feel however you feel about it, but that is not the intent. Um, so when I say an inflection point, what I really mean is various parties, entities, power brokers, etc., within this country at each of these 10 inflection points I'm going to identify made decisions, and because of the decisions made, it further led us onto the path that we are on now. Um, but again, all this is going to come back to like the premise of the video. How did we get here? So I could just make this a really short video and be really cliche and empirically absolutely incorrect and just go and put up on the screen 10 or 15 different graphs that just show Reagan did it. It's Reagan. It's fucking Reagan. Uh, from crack cocaine to HIV to obliterating social programs and all of the benefits and infrastructure that allowed us to go from the 50s, 60s into the 70s and 80s, and then into the absolute peak that was the 90s, and all of how his policies eroded those things. So by the time we started hitting the 2000s, we were starting to pay the piper, and then we have continued to erode and obliterate those things ever since. It's a much shorter video, but also it's kind of been beaten to death. Like you can find 500 versions of that video. And again, it's just empirically accurate. I don't care if you're old and you're like, no, Reagan was the best president because Mr. Gorbachev, take down that wall. I don't fucking care. You're wrong. Just because he's got a cute quote doesn't mean he was good at his job. And trust me, we're going to talk about a lot of people having cute quotes and not being good at their jobs. And spoiler alert, Obama's going to be on that list. Um, this is not a video that is about partisan politics. This is about how did America get where we are. And actually, partisanship and the idiocy that is that ideology is a huge part of that. And so, with the preamble done, I've been running my mouth for almost 7 minutes here. Let's go ahead and kick into things. So, here's segment one. How did we get here? It's all Democrats' fault, is the shortest, highest level answer to that. And before anybody on any side of the aisle gets their panties in the water, throws babies in the air, that doesn't mean what you think it means. When I say it's all Democrats' fault, the modern era and the modern Republican Party, in particular the one that's existed the last 15 years, but even the last 25, has at certain points, and most recently, again, empirically and factually, is an enemy of the American people, but has certainly not been an ally of the American people, meaning the 350 plus million people who live coast to coast. I'm not talking about that pretty little map that some of you see where it's like 94% red and then like there's little blue spots in there and then like, you're not very smart so you think land has vote. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the people of America, from rural America, which, just for the record, I was born in Bozeman, Montana. Look it up, not the big city. And I didn't even live in Bozeman. I was born there. I've seen rural America. I grew up in rural America. I live in California. I've seen the other side too. I'm not speaking out of my ass. I've lived and worked on farms, and I've lived and worked in tech. I can speak to both from experience. Guess what? Both are hard, completely different lives. Um, Certain people would really like those two groups to keep hating each other until they don't figure out that someone else is the problem. But we'll get to that. Here's what Democrats, it's their fault, really means. Failing number one, and this is our first inflection point. So, inflection point number one was 9/11. So, 9/11 happened. Now, there's something that happened just, a little bit before 9/11. Some people would call that an inflection point. I don't want to get into why that would be really a different video. Here's why 9/11 is an inflection point. 9/11 is an inflection point from a cultural perspective, but how our politicians and our businesses handled post 9/11 America is what led there. So you have the terrorist attack, the towers fall, racism, public, commercial, promoted racism was a big thing post 9/11. That's always been a part of America. Again, I I don't want to turn this into that video. I'm happy to make that video. It's just not this video. If you think that racism wasn't a thing until so and so brought it up relatively recently, you probably lived in a neighborhood with a fence around it, or there wasn't a lot of different pigmentation where you grew up, most likely. or you're just stupid. But it's been a very real thing for a lot of people in this country for pretty much its entire existence. Racism didn't start at 9/11, and it wasn't the only problem. 9/11 is an inflection point in large part because 9/11 was not only the gateway into the racism, but the biggest thing that happened with 9/11 is we did not take America and go, okay, everyone come together. We have been attacked. We need to rebuild. We need to come together as a whole. We will not let them break us. You go look at all of Osama bin Laden's statements. Essentially, his goal was to destroy America. Well, it's 25 years later. Osama bin Laden won. It's not really debatable. The America that was the shining city on the hill, or at least what we believed it was, is dead. Maybe we can rebuild it on the ashes, but understand that it is a smoldering, smoking pit. And a huge chunk of that is what 9/11 opened up, and the inflection point from there politically is the rise of hypernationalism. Yes, you had McCarthyism, but McCarthyism wasn't hypernationalism. The Red Scare was on ideological grounds, it was on branding and fear tactics and a lot of other very bad shit. It actually really wasn't that much hypernationalism. The you don't like it, then get out. And that time the accent was intentional. Um, that shit really became mainstream after 9/11 as a part of that rebound. Oh, you're criticizing the fact that we're going to this war in Iraq that we have absolutely no business on. And the sad part is like, oh, they're going to a war. They're going to Iraq for oil. No, they didn't. We didn't get any fucking oil. That would have actually been less stupid and less self destructive if we had gone there and gone, hey, well, since we're in the area, we might as well go shopping. Let's get some oil. Let's get some gold. Let's get some minerals. We're going to take over this. Afghanistan, Iraq, they're actually rich in natural resources. The world's largest, most powerful empire. We decided we want a peace. And we think that we have a valid reason to be here. And frankly, there's no one on the planet that can do anything about it. So we're just going to take. That would have been smarter than what we did. All we did was a 20-year occupation that needlessly sacrificed the lives of our soldiers and those who didn't die, many of whom are damaged for life. And then they had to go back to a country that uses them for propaganda and does not give a single solitary fuck about them. And if you think otherwise, just remember that public, private individuals, people like John Stewart, as well as elected officials, have had to fight tooth and nail for 25 years to get benefits for cancer and other like health issues that came for first responders to 9/11, as well as constantly fighting against cuts for the VA. And if you find yourself ever running your mouth about homelessness in the US and homelessness in our big cities, ignoring the root cause perpetrators, banks, all that bullshit, which we'll get into in a bit, understand that a huge chunk of the homeless population comes from our veterans, and a huge chunk of our drug abuse population is our veterans because we take horrible fucking care of them. So if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at the people who sent them on a mission for nothing. They didn't fight for nothing, they fought for their country. Very noble aspiration. The people who sent them knowing they were fighting for nothing. We gained nothing from that war. We weren't liberating anyone. We didn't even seize any assets. What we were doing was feeding a war machine because some very, very well off investors were like, hey, you know what makes a ton of money? War. Let's keep making a ton of money. And it's disgustingly that simple. That's inflection point one. The hypernationalism, the war machine, and then also, here's the other part of that. And this is where we start really coming into why is this the Democrats' fault? Because Bush was president, not the next guy. Well, as we're going to go over the next however long this takes me to get through, branding matters, messaging matters, how you communicate information matters. It matters in general, it's actually extraordinarily important. But when you have a overworked, undereducated, low information populace, which is what we have here in America. And in case you don't think that America is like that, just remember that we made Honey Boo Boo and the Kardashians and Jerry Springer all millions of dollars. There's nothing wrong with liking and watching trash TV if that's what you're into, but understand that the Kardashians are billionaires because their mother bought them some surgery and she pimped out her daughters. That's the entire reason. They steal people's products, they do lots of gross shit. None of it matters. They're on TV and they're dumb on TV and people watch them and they make money on that. The same people that watch that show and live by it vote. And I'm not saying get rid of voters. I'm saying expecting the average person who works a job and wants simple, stupid, cheap entertainment that has nothing to do with life because they just want to completely not be in theirs because they're overworked and underpaid might not be an expert on international politics. Just a thought. When you take that populace and you have an issue like the war in Iraq, which came as a direct result of 9/11, which, when we went to Afghanistan, the whole world had our back and made a ton of sense. Then we're like, yeah, actually, you know what? Fuck Saddam. Even though we've been backing him for all this time, and there's a bunch of, I won't get into post colonialism and all the different ways the West fucked the Middle East, kind of like we did Africa. It's a common theme there. People a little closer to the equator, a little browner. We don't really like them so much in the West, apparently. Read a history book. It's actually sad. Um, but anyway, so we go there, fight a war on false pretenses, fact, sacrifice a shit ton of people and an unbelievable amount of money, and gain fuck all, absolutely nothing. The United States of America, the country and the people within it, gained jack shit from that war. Nothing. What was the Democratic branding that whole time? Bush wants to complete his daddy's war. The big thing was war for oil, but it was never a war for oil. And here's the problem: the Democrats at that time knew it wasn't a war for oil. It was a war for the war contractors. Lockheed Martin and what is it? It's not Blackwall. The mercenary group that Dick Cheney had a shit ton of money in that just so happened to get a lot of those contracts. Big mystery there. That's who benefited. They weren't ignorant of that, but they got donations from them too. We have no degree of separation between private entities, businesses, etc., and our elected officials. So they spread a little money over here on the other side, and you brand it for it's a war on oil instead of just flat out pointing out we are only there because being there is profitable for these companies, and that's it. We could have left at any time, and we send this false narrative. But if we leave, the bad people will take back over. We're not stopping the bad people from taking over now. The people we're defining as bad are, wait, check. Oh, the people. They can set their own government and laws. We did not make it better. And then even if we had tried to make it better, the actual way to make it better is to take it over, seize it as a territory, establish a new government, spend 20 years building out infrastructure, improving people's lives, and giving them a reason to make different choices without forcing them to adapt to a completely different culture. Like, you can do it. Empires have done it throughout the history of man. It's assimilation. It was the Roman model. It works very, very well. We didn't fucking do that. So, communication, big problem there. Well, now we get to our next inflection point. And again, I'm going further a little bit forward here, but again, I don't want to make this an 8-hour video. So in 2008, a relatively unknown, especially to the average person, senator, he wins the nomination over what should have been a guaranteed candidate, the most charismatic woman that has ever existed in the history of time and man. Everyone loves her. Actually, no, everybody hates her. She's an elitist and just absolutely awful at talking to humans in any setting ever. Hillary Clinton got completely wrecked by Barack Obama. And Barack Obama is an exceptional communicator. And Barack Obama sold the dream of democratic socialism. He didn't call it that. Term wasn't mainstream at the time. We're going to take another quick moment here to define terms. Democratic of the people. Socialism is not communism. Communism is an economic model. Communism is the economic model where the state controls the means of production. Communism is fiction. It never fully truly existed and never worked and never would in human society because it is utopian. It requires infinite resources in order to work. It's a nice idea, but it's not practical. Like, it's that simple. No true communist state has ever existed. There have been attempts, but really it's just grift. Socialism, however, not only works, socialism is directly responsible for the American Golden Age. Let me go through a quick list of things that are socialist. And you tell me which of these are a bad idea for the country. Public roads. No, no, we don't hate those. Eisenhower saw that Germany had those. They worked incredibly well. We copied them here, and it led to major economic booms here. Oh no, public education. Now, don't get me wrong. Religious groups and the rich hate public education because we don't need people thinking. Can't have that. But it's amazing for the country and super, super important. Free public education for your children. Very bad. No, no, no. Can't have that. Ooh, here's a good one. Police officers. A publicly funded police force to help keep the peace and help people and take care of people. That's actually socialist. But I'll do you even one better. Firefighters. For some reason, like they always talk about first responders, and everyone always thinks of cops, and because we want to. And again, for the record, I know some amazing cops, and there's lots of incredible cops out there. But there's also a lot of abusive, power-hungry, needle-dicked pussies who beat their wives and then walk around with a badge to protect themselves and think it gives them the right to enact their worst tendencies instead of that understanding that badge is shaped like a shield because you're supposed to protect the public. You're a public servant, not a little fiefdom. Um, but again, the hyper nationalism that came from a 9/11 and the way that we over militarized things and we deified the police and the military, but in particular the police, and we also started to blur those lines. Huge fucking problem there. And we're talking about a 25-year timeline here. So it's not like, oh, well, it was this and it was that, and we flipped the light switch. These things happen gradually. But Obama comes in, back on topic, Brian, beats the dog shit out of Hillary. He's a great speaker, he's charismatic, and he's selling the ideology of democratic socialism, which is as simple as we are still a democracy, we are still of the people, we are still for the people, but maybe we should just have some nice baselines established and protected by the government we all participate in to make sure that all of us have a reasonable opportunity at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What could be more American than that? I don't know. It's in the fucking Declaration of Independence. The founding fathers sound pretty fucking socialist if you actually read. But America, we have an average reading level of a sixth grade, so got some 3 and 4 syllable words in that document. Might be a little bit tough. I'm not petty. I'm very petty. Back on topic. So Obama wins. Obama winning, it was an inflection point for some people, because some people know that he's half black and half white, and they don't care because if you're anything but white to them, you're a darkie and they don't like you very much. And for the record, fuck those people. Just period. I'm not gonna. There is no middle ground for me on that. If you are a racist or a bigot, you just suck. I don't care. Fuck you. You suck. Um, but it's the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And why is it called Obamacare, by the way? It's the Affordable Care Act. Why would we call it Obamacare? Turns out Democrats didn't brand it Obamacare. Republicans did. And in particular, the people who fund Republicans, big business and billionaires did. And the Democrats, by the way, at the time had a supermajority. So they had control of the House, control of the Senate, and control of the Oval Office. And they had enough by a big enough margin they could basically pass anything they wanted as long as they all went, hey, we have a plan and we should do it. Unfortunately, Our theme here is why is it the Democrats' fault? We're about to start getting into it. With that supermajority, instead of understanding that people's lives are getting worse, keep in mind the timeline here. We're talking '08. We're going into the early parts of this. We're entering into the housing crisis. We're entering into a major recession. We're entering into paying the piper for the first time for all the dumb shit we did from 2000 to 2008 as far as spending the nation's money, blowing up our debt, not taxing the rich, and not investing in our infrastructure because infrastructure leads to business, entrepreneurship. It leads to more money in the economy, which means more people paying taxes and the government being less broke. We'll come back to that in a minute because there's a myth about millionaires and billionaires that I won't even call people stupid. I just don't think you guys all understand. And it's very intentional that they do not want you to understand this with taxes. But I'll come back to that in a bit. So the ACA fails. Well, the only reason the ACA failed was because a lot of the Democrats are bought and paid for toadies. And that's again where we come back to everything that's happened now is your fault. Like if you were a member of the Democratic Party, an elected official in the House or Congress, the Senate, etc., during that period of time, it's your fault. You're a huge part of how we got here. Make no mistake of that, because around this same period of time, you have the '08 collapse, you have the failure of the ACA, the original version of the ACA, which was pretty close to Medicare for all, which is what we should be doing. And why should we be doing that? Well, you see, Medicare is pre negotiated by the government with the drug and healthcare companies to make sure that costs are minimized because it's for our senior citizens, our disabled, and some of our veterans. And so the government's like, well, I don't care that some middle manager or some processor wants to make a 300% margin here. Fuck you. The price is this. And they go, okay, because they'd like to make some money and they don't have a choice. And so costs are lower because it is a fundamental, empirical, proven fact. Same quality of care, costs are lower. Medicare works and you can expand it. And the bill had funding built into it. Would have paid for itself, would have been perfectly fine, would have been a much better option for everyone involved. But, stock prices might not have gone up so much. Now we can't have that. And so the interference happened. And this is where Obama fails you for the first time. Because the man who ran on hope and change gave us hope, but brought no change. Because Obama, unfortunately, an incredibly impressive human being, brilliant speaker. But unfortunately, when it came push time to shove, or yeah, I fucked up the idiom, but whatever, he was the same neoliberal garbage as the rest of them. Big business focused, not building into infrastructure, not taking care of the people, falling into the myths. Oh, but if you take care of the companies and you take care of Wall Street, they broke the world's economy. They caused a global collapse of the world's economy. No heads rolled. They weren't arrested. There was just a big ass check written by the government. Here's your money. Clear the books. You guys are fine. The taxpayers will pay for your fuck up. And they put in some regulations, but they didn't come down on them that hard. They didn't take it as an opportunity to review the tax code and go, hey, there's a lot more stuff we should be doing and a lot of things we should be investing in. And not just, and we'll come towards the end, I'll come a lot deeper into this, but not just, oh, roads and bridges, but really genuinely driving entrepreneurship and the economy as a whole is a part of the state's job to make sure these things continue to function in a healthy manner. We didn't do any of that. We just went to former lobbyists for the insurance companies, not healthcare, the insurance companies, and went, well, why don't you help us rewrite the bill? And oh my God, Obamacare, version 2.0, the one that passed, while it did help a lot of people, there is no question about that. It helped a lot of people. It saved a lot of lives. It improved a lot of people's health. It's just an embarrassment compared to what it could have been and should have been and would have been if the original version had passed. But you know who benefited the most from Obamacare? Insurance companies. Because you didn't do a public option. You didn't do Medicare for all. You subsidized insurance. Now, that still worked for a lot of people because people who couldn't afford health insurance got health insurance. But it was even better for the health companies because we can still raise people rates and we can still screw people over and we can still charge 4, 5, 800%, 10,000% margins depending on what things are. Like you can go to other countries and get a hip replacement and it costs a fraction of the amount. And it's not because the doctor is better and it's not because the part is more expensive. It's because the markups aren't there because they're not legal. It's that simple. When insulin costs you pennies on the dollar to make and is several $100s because it's a public service, but it is a private good. Healthcare is a public service. You have a problem. The ACA was supposed to help address that. It didn't. That's a failing. That's an inflection point. You chose big business, the major pharmaceutical companies, the major insurance companies, and most specifically Wall Street over the American people. You promised hope, you delivered no change. But he ran again. And he ran against a schmuck and he obliterated again because he's an incredible speaker. But here's where we really start talking about another inflection. And forgive the timeline, it's a little bit in the middle here, but it happens during that 8-year run. So you have the Occupy movement. This is where we really start getting into why the Democrats are the problem. And I can't even start talking about Trump. Just, I know we're 30 minutes in. I can't talk about Trump and how Trump came to be and why he even had a fucking prayer. A guy who, for 30 years before he ever ran for office, was a global punchline for being uneducated, unsuccessful, dumb as shit. That guy ran for president and won. We're going to get into how that happened, but understanding these inflection points and this path there is actually really important because it is Democrats' fault because they failed to deliver. The Republican side, especially the evangelicals and the Christo fascists who've been there this entire timeline, 2000 and now, they've been there, they've been a major part of it. Their goals were simple. They're not overly fond that women have votes. They're not overly fond that gay people exist at all. They're not particularly fond that people who have slightly different pigments, essentially anyone with melanin in them, have any rights at all. They would like to go back to the good old days, but they want you to think the good old days is like the mid 90s where we were doing really, really well, but they mean the 1890s. That's what they're going. The 1790s, 3/5, motherfucker. That's what they want. That's what they've wanted the whole time. They want to own you. They're just better at branding and marketing. And the Democrats are terrible at branding and marketing because they are bought and paid for by the same people and this entire time have not figured out the best way to seize power in a democracy, even a pseudo oligarchy like what we've had, is to take care of the people. Barack Obama was a populist. Another quick term definition. Populist essentially breaks down to you have someone like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is a career politician. Mitt Romney was not a populist. He's just the Republican candidate. Hillary Clinton was the Democratic candidate. Barack was a populist. The people, across party lines, across partisan lines, as a general whole, went hope, change, that guy's awesome. First black president, let's go for it. That's a populist. Populists have a playbook that is available to them that other candidates and other people in power don't. Because the populist has divine providence to a degree. They have the ability to go, hey, I promised you I would do ABC. Joe Manchin over here is a fucking traitor and he's screwing you all over, even though he has one of the worst states in the union for any measure of success in taking care of his constituents. And now he's screwing me from helping you guys. You should get him out of here. A populist can do that with virtually no obstruction and no repercussions, provided you can prove it. And even if you can't prove it, as long as you can make people think it, they'll go along with it. And that person is out of here. Barack didn't want to do that playbook. Barack allowed them to sabotage the ACA. Barack also chose to not punish Wall Street, to not crack down on the banks, to not make sure something like that couldn't happen again, to not protect workers, to not boost unions, to not make sure that the protections that existed in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s and the early parts of the 90s, all the things that Reagan helped destroy that built that golden age started to come back. Well, because of that, you get Occupy. Occupy Wall Street was a thing. You guys can look it up. It's not that complicated. Essentially, a bunch of people realized that the top 1% have more money, resources, and power than the other 99% combined, and that might be a problem because the rest of us are getting fucked. CEO wages are increasing by thousands of percentage points year over year, decade over decade, and worker wages are basically stagnant. Not that hard to figure out. Oh, the economy's doing great. Look at the stock market. Bitch, eggs are $12. It's that simple. That was in '08. Bitch, eggs are $12. Eggs weren't $12 in '08, but it's the same comeback. Funny how that same thing is there in 2024. There's a reason for this. Occupy happens. They fail to address it. Democrats fail to meet the moment. They fail to brand themselves. They fail to understand the value and the necessity of having an identity as a political entity. The other side has an identity. You might not like the identity, but your political position being, we're better people than them. They're horrible people. Look at them. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. The average person eventually gets tired of the mud flinging and the bullshit and they develop a simple opinion. They're all corrupt. They're all the same. What's in it for me? And the first group to go, hey, here's what's in it for you, well, they win. Well, out of Occupy, you get a lot of splinters. But because of Occupy and the bank bailout, we get our next inflection point. We get the Tea Party movement. And the Tea Party movement results in a massive shift. So in the middle of Barack's, I believe it was his second term. I could check the dates, but it's right around that time. Everything flips. Not only do you not have the House and the Senate, you don't have your supermajority more, you've lost your power. You now have a similar situation to what Jimmy Carter dealt with. You have a combative, obstructive Congress. Well, why did that happen? Was racism part of it? Absolutely. But the part of it that doesn't get talked about is you ran on hope and change, and you delivered neither. And because you got people's hopes up and then delivered nothing, it opens up the grifters and the shysters and the bullshitters to go in and go, he's just an elitist, he's just a liar, he doesn't love you, but I love you. And they'll believe it because they're broke and they're hurting and they're hungry and they're desperate. And that fucker screwed me over. That elitist, liberal, commie scum, because that's how they brand him. And the people fall for it. And the reason the people fall for it is because your brand is not, I'm going to make it so that you can afford a home, generation that will never be able to afford a home. I'm going to make it so that your groceries are cheaper. I'm going to make it so that your job actually gives you a pension the way that they used to, that you have a hope of retirement, that you have a hope of career advancement, that we build out infrastructure, that we pay our fucking teachers, that we educate our children, that we make healthcare affordable, and we can do all these things, and lots of people can still make lots and lots and lots of money, but maybe a few billionaires will make a lot less. And that's perfectly okay because 1% of $1 billion is generational wealth. And these people's wealth accumulates at more than 1% year over year. Them paying more in taxes doesn't affect them negatively at all, but they would love for you to believe it does because they want you to go, well, they stole 30-40% of my paycheck. God, I wouldn't want them to do that to the guy that owns Walmart. Well, hey, dipshit, if we did it to the guy that owns Walmart, we wouldn't need 30% of your fucking paycheck. And more importantly, if we did it to the that owns Walmart, you would have a lot more stuff. You'd have the public option. You'd have cheaper health care. So guess what? Even if the government still took that 30% of your check, if you're getting provided child care, cheap education, cheaper food, better food, You're getting lower health costs, better infrastructure, better jobs, pensions. You're getting all these wonderful things. That remaining 70% of your paycheck, it goes further. You can do more with it because you're not spending as much on rent. You're not spending as much on healthcare or health insurance or groceries, and children are less expensive. So birth rates go back up, which, by the way, they're down. Why are birth rates down? Birth rates are down because having a pet is expensive. A fucking cat is expensive. Kids, oh my God, parents out there, I feel for you because it's insane how expensive children are. I don't have one, I never will. It's irrelevant. It's insane. That's the world. And again, we are talking '08 to 2014 right now. That time period. This is a 6 year stretch. Not a huge amount of time, but a huge failing and a lot of inflection points in there. Occupy and the bank bailout, the Tea Party, the rise of populism, and then you get into 2015, the next presidential cycle. So you have two more populists that pop up because the more desperate people are, the more they're looking for someone to sell them a dream to make things better. Well, we have Hillary again, the greatest, most charismatic, well spoken, totally cares about you little people, but is dumb enough to call the voting populace deplorables because she's a fucking idiot and she's terrible at campaigning and talking to humans. So she runs again. But she, once again, runs into a populist. Once again, a populist who's running essentially on democratic socialism, except this guy uses the term. Oh no, we use a big scary S word. We have all these wonderful things that we all agree we like and are good ideas that come from socialism because socialism is more of a political and ideological model and isn't a fiscal model at all. Communism is. Socialism really isn't. Socialism is actually the perfect counterweight to capitalism because extreme capitalism always ends up Ouroborosing itself, aka eating its own fucking tail, because it's a doomsday. Socialism helps balance that out, create the baseline, allows things to flow, allows you to not have too much accumulation at the top. And this is the part where we do talk about this because why does democratic socialism appeal to the American people so much right now? Because we all know that there's this very small group of elites that have more money and more wealth than all of us combined. More money and more wealth that they could ever spend, even if they wanted to. Literally. And we all are fighting paycheck to paycheck. Our rent goes up every year. The apartment doesn't get better, but the number keeps going up. And all the major renters get to collude together and work on software that allows them to make sure they all have the same similar prices so they can all raise them together so everybody maximizes their earnings. By the way, that's completely fucking illegal, but that's never stopped business. That's what the purpose of regulation, so you don't screw people over or kill them, etc. Regulation is important, folks. You can overregulate, and it is a problem and is a real thing, but regulation is still very, very important. So we don't do those things. We don't take care of people. People are desperate. Populists rise. Well, one populist, Democratic Socialist, person who had been in politics for decades, but the average person had never heard this guy's name. This tiny little, very old guy named Bernie Sanders. Bernie says a bunch of stuff that the average person, and especially young people, go, that sounds great. Medicare for all. We all like Medicare. It works. It's funded. It gets to negotiate its own bills. It already exists, so we know it works. It's not theoretical. Okay, so we tax a little bit more to fund it more to give it to everybody. And people actually net by the end of the year spend less money on Medicare than they would just paying an insurance company because the insurance company is a middleman that's for profit and Medicare just needs to fund the actual fucking care that's being delivered. Oh wow, that's good math. We like that. Okay, well that's good. What else do you want to do? Oh, he wants to raise the minimum wage so that it's closer to what it actually should be for the purpose of a minimum wage, which is to cover your expenses. Oh, what a monster. Horrible guy. Okay, well what else has he got? Oh, well he wants to make sure that everyone has access to college So college should just be subsidized by the government. It's 25-ish billion dollars a year. That's nothing on our national ledger. Literally nothing. We forgot that in a drawer. We spent that on a jet, not to make a jet, not to develop a jet, one fucking jet. 25 billion would have given every kid a 4-year degree. All those sound reasonable. A lot of people like him. Uh, Hillary. Here's why this is an inflection point. And there's another side of this inflection point coming here in a second. So Hillary goes, oh, no, 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 you're not getting me again. This is my destiny, my birthright. So Hillary has lots of friends at the networks. The coverage of Bernie is not, oh, wow, people really are showing up for this guy. Oh, wow, people really like this guy. All the coverage around Bernie is this guy's got no chance. Oh, the Hillary Clinton's lead is insurmountable. It wasn't. Her superdelegate lead with Bernie was basically tied for the first several weeks. In fact, she didn't get anything remotely close to a major lead over him until several other candidates who had also gotten some superdelegates suddenly, magically dropped out and all committed their superdelegates to her. And then you have the self-fulfilling prophecy. And of course, Hillary, and this is again why this is all Democrats' fault. Hillary doesn't go, oh, wow, a lot of people really care about this stuff. Maybe I should bring in Bernie or at least bring him in to consult and help me construct a platform that has my stuff and how amazing I am as the wife of Bill Clinton, but also good things that people care about and actually helps their lives and makes me a little bit more human and a little bit more appealing to them. And he can also teach me to pretend like I care because I'm not very good at that. No, no, she doesn't do any of that because the Democratic Party doesn't do that because they don't establish an identity. And their identity is, again, not we're for the people, we're trying to help you, we're trying to make your lives better, we're trying to make sure everybody has rights. The platform they should have been running this entire time as the actual counter to the actual side that is not doing those things and is actually fundamentally fighting against those things over this entire time period. No, 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 no. Your entire platform is, hey, we're not them. I mean, how could you vote for them? You'd be deplorable. Well, here's the problem. Another populist comes up. Funny enough, you guys can go back and check this. It's the footage that's out there on the internet. It's not AI. Donald Trump didn't start with all the racism and the bullshit. He's there now. I mean, that's always who he's been. You look at his family history, his history, the Part Five. It's all over who he is as a human being. But that's not where he started. He started with Drain the Swamp. We talked about Occupy earlier. The people that were so pissed at Wall Street and the bank bailout and the fact that the rest of us got a giant deficit, we got a tax bill, we got fucked. Those assholes got to break the economy, make a ton of money, and they get bailed out and not lose a fucking thing. Well, those people are still pissed, and some of them splintered off into the Tea Party movement. And a lot of them went behind Bernie. And some others who are still pissed at the establishment and they don't necessarily know how things work. They're not economists. These are welders and shop owners and grocery store clerks and waiters and bartenders and regular everyday people who work 40 to 70 hours to put food on their table who do not have the time or the inclination to become fundamentally, truly educated about these issues, how they work, who is whatnot. They only have the surface level stuff that they get told, and they have one group who has branded themselves as we like bankers and we don't really care about you, but also yay Jesus, and the other side's stupid enough to let us pretend we're the only ones who love Jesus. Yay, idiots! Again, they're idiots. They're complete idiots. And then the other side is like, hey, we're not them, and that's their whole brand. And I wish I was being reductive, but I'm really not. That's been the whole brand. And then you got this guy who's kind of famous and kind of stupid. And we all know he's kind of famous and kind of stupid, but he's funny and he's kind of entertaining, but he's kind of famous and kind of stupid. But he's talking about drain the swamp. And he's like, hey, guys, you got all these elites, all these crooked, commie, destructive, socialist, throw in the buzzwords, got to pepper him with buzzwords. Again, he's a marketer and a grifter, guys. He knows how to do branding. He knows he has mastered the one thing that has crippled Democrats this entire time. And he comes in and he says all the things that people are waiting to hear. All the stuff, for many of them, that Obama promised. Never delivered. And they got hoodwinked again. Except this time intentionally. I don't think Obama did it intentionally. I just think he did it incompetently. He didn't understand how to properly wield the advantages of a populace. Unfortunately, Donnie Dipshit did. And Donnie Dipshit won the Republican nomination because, well, I mean, you had literally, hey, please clap Jeb Bush as like their chosen son. It was going to be Jeb versus Hillary. The one race Hillary had a chance of maybe winning was Jeb Bush. Any other candidate runs, she's losing. You have no idea. There were so many people who did not vote, won that election. And did not vote, won that election because a lot of people looked at those two options and went, oh, this. It was literally the South Park episode Come Tonight. It's a douchebag and a turd sandwich. I have no good options. I hate both of them. Their politics are the same. Now, is that actually true? No. But perception of the average person, they might as well be the same. And you've done nothing to establish a brand that would make them believe that you're not the same, that you would deliver, that you would take care of them, and so you are at the mercy of your brand. So Trump comes in and he wins the Republican nomination. And Trump, who, by the way, was a friend of the Clintons for a very long time, and that's probably why Hillary didn't. She ran a horrible campaign, just in general, a terrible campaign, but she also ran a terrible campaign against Trump. He didn't hammer his business failings. This guy's a nincompoop. He's a moron. He reneges on every deal he's ever gone through. The divorces, the raping. Again, not, oh, no, he said he's a rapist. Oh, that's that's against the law. He's going to sue you. No, he literally can't because he was literally adjudicated as a rapist. It's a statement of fact. It's like calling Chris Christie fat. You're fat. No slander involved. Slander requires it to be an untrue statement. Sorry, buddy. She comes in with that, runs a terrible campaign. Trump wins. Trump partially won because Trump didn't just run on the racism and the grifting and the bullshit, although there was a ton of that. The Make America Great Again, the basis of that is to go after the most disenfranchised, the most disillusioned, the most downtrodden, the poor. And there are more poor white people in this country than there are anybody else. The problem is that they're really good at convincing that all the poor white people, that it's all the dark guys' fault. It's not the rich white guys that own everything. No, 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 no. Couldn't possibly be that. No, no, no. And it couldn't be your pastor who, drives a Porsche and has four houses and a plane. No, 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 no. That's for Jesus. I have the plane so I can be closer to heaven. It's how we have our conversations. It saves on the cellular bill. It's all on the up and up. No, 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 no. No, it's because of the immigrant who, by the way, pays taxes and receives none of the benefits from those taxes. Pays them, receives none of the benefits. Sorry if you guys weren't aware of that. That's actually how that works. Not eligible for any of it. An immigrant who works hard, pays taxes, doesn't receive the benefits, but for the hope that they can raise a family who can receive those benefits and can receive the fruits of their labor and can have a better life. That is the problem. Because the clean toilets all day. There's the grift. And you do nothing to combat the grift, and so people continue to fall for the grift. And Trump embraces the grift. Make America great again. Drain the swamp. Yes, he has the racism and the other shit, but that wasn't the primary branding. And he gets away with saying heinous things and being a terrible person because he was in the public light for 30 years and he was saying dumb shit for 30 years, and so people are desensitized to Trump being an asshole. Oh, it's just locker room talk. Trump's never been in a locker room in his fucking life, except the girls' locker rooms at the Miss America pageants that he used to go into so he could peep on 13-year-old girls. And that's also corroborated and been proven. So again, miss me with the, you're making that up. Nope, you just don't like reading. We're only at inflection point 5, but the next 5 go fast because these things accelerate. And here's where we really fuck up. COVID happens, doesn't properly get handled. Trump is allowed at the last minute to put his name on the checks, even though he fought Congress for them to come out the entire time. Completely boggles the whole thing, leads to tens of thousands of people dying. Misinformation, which again, part of the misinformation problem is because Democrats have had control of the House, the Senate multiple times throughout this period of time. And we didn't pass any regulations on the airwaves and Fox News and podcasters and people that present themselves at news, providing factually incorrect things to the masses and creating conspiracy theories and the culture elements there and those things. Like that's part of the problem. Then post COVID, Biden comes in. Biden didn't beat Trump because he ran an incredible campaign. Biden didn't beat Trump because he provided this incredible plan that gave people hope. Biden beat Trump because COVID happened and a huge chunk of people went, for fuck's sake, get the Twitter in chief off of the internet and out of the Oval Office. I want my job and my economy back because Trump inherited a roaring economy in 2016. And by 2020, not just the pandemic, he was wrecking that shit in 2018. 2018 and 2019, you can look at the numbers. Manufacturing was falling off a cliff. He had obliterated the farmers because he started a different trade war with China, which he also lost because he's stupid. He'd already done that. Then COVID happened. Biden won because people were sick of Trump and he came across as a pretty competent, loosely associated to Obama, who we don't love anymore, but we still like. And he's good at his job. And he was a little cranky, and we kind of liked that he was a little cranky. When he told Trump to shut up in that debate, it was a big highlight for him because someone finally stood up to the little pussy bully. That was it. That's why he won. But then January 6th happens. And this is really where we get into why is this all Democrats' fault? So January 6th happens. A large group of people were funneled and coordinated and driven into the Capitol to try to overturn our free and fair election. First of all, every single one of those people should have been put in prison and should never seen the light of day again. And if you think that's too harsh, I don't care. I also think the same thing should have happened to the bankers who made all the decisions knowingly that collapsed the economy in '08. Same thing. You put the lives of that many people at risk, fuck you. That's simple. Also, that's literally treason and an insurrection. Like, you should have thought of that before you decided to storm the building. Maybe don't take a selfie in Nancy Pelosi's office, you dumb fuck. Also, fuck her. But still, dumb fuck. But here's the most important part. The moment that Joe Biden took office, there should have been an investigation into that. And when I say an investigation into that, I mean there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that shows that not only did Trump and Ted Cruz and a lot of the other people involved in that whole little thing know about what was going to happen, but they helped instigate it. And it wouldn't have been that hard to prove it because Trump hasn't hidden a crime in his entire fucking life. He just plays dumb and goes on to the next crime and the next lie, and you're too busy chasing the new one to worry about the old one. It's a behavioral pattern that exists for over 40 years. Trump doesn't go to prison. And part of the reason, again, why is this Democrats' fault? You were the president. You could have tried him. Period. You, as the executive, had the ability to bring down the hammer on Trump and everyone involved in that. Try them on treason, make him ineligible for office, put him in prison, go after the whole crime family. Could have done it all. Would have gone down in the history books as a great man and a great leader. Because the sad thing is, through parts of Biden's presidency, he actually finally did do some of the things that Democrats should be doing, did invest in infrastructure, did do the CHIPS Act, did try to bring jobs back to America, did try to help the American people, but he did a horrible fucking job of communicating it, which is, again, one of the main failings of the Democrats. When they do good stuff, they don't make sure to tell everybody about it. So when the other side goes, hey, those guys don't do anything and they suck, and then you don't explain to them, no, I did these 11 things and this is how it benefited you. When they're only hearing one side, guess what side they're going to believe? The only one that they're hearing. You morons. Well, I'm just going to let the work stand for itself. And that's why you're on the outside of the halls of power and they're on the inside because they're playing a very different game from you. They're playing the we want all the power and we want you to be gone and not exist game. And you're playing the but I would like the appearance of looking like the good guy. You idiots. That's inflection point 7. Eight, or sorry, seven was January 6th. Eight is the handling of Trump and the cronies. Again, a lot of these come rapid fire. Now we get to the last two. Biden, the entire time, because he's old as fucking shit, he's also the same age as Trump, folks. Old as dirt, though. He always ran on the premise that he'd be a one-term president. You stare into that abyss and start staring back, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I am mixing terms here, and I'm doing it intentionally because these two things are not unrelated. And Biden runs for a second term, but he's clearly diminished. So is his opponent, but the difference is a level of performance and cognition and competency is expected of Biden. Trump was a fucking moron 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. The guy was a punchline his whole life. Trump being an idiot and saying dumb shit is not new. And so the observable elements of cognitive decline, yeah, they're there for both guys. Trump's brain is fucking mashed potatoes. The difference is Biden being diminished stands out more because he is held to the standard of being intelligent and articulate and competent. And Trump just has to be Trump. It's called the personality. He's a populist. He just has to continue to do the things he has done, and he gets a pass because there's no change. He was never smart. He was never well spoken. He was never articulate. He was never competent. He's never been competent at anything other than marketing and grift his entire life. Literally, nothing. He's not good at any of those. He's not good at business. He puts businesses out of business. He's good at grift. He's great at marketing, extraordinary at marketing and branding. But that's it. So Biden runs. But here's where the inflection point is even more aggravating. Biden runs, but if you were going to run again, you should have been campaigning the whole time you were president. You should have been telling the people, we inherited an incredible mess. We inherited the post pandemic, a broken economy, broken systems. We've got all of these billionaires and AI and these different monopolies that are coming up and trying to completely destroy American infrastructure and the average person's opportunity at making a living and having a life as quickly as they possibly can because they want to accumulate wealth, because that's what billionaires do. And I promise I would talk about this earlier. This is the time to talk about this. Here's the problem with billionaires. It's not, oh my God, billionaires are evil. Some billionaires are evil. Some billionaires are just billionaires. Same thing with millionaires. But here's the problem with billionaires specifically, or 100 millionaires. Like, you can establish a threshold you want at a certain point. It's all the same. They don't spend money. They accumulate. Elon Musk is supposedly going to be getting $1 trillion pay package from Tesla through all of his different companies and all those things. For what? A, he's not doing anything. But more importantly, that shouldn't be allowed. Not because, oh, well, he earned that money. Well, no, he didn't earn that money. No one earns that kind of money. The scales are too different. People say that because they have no concept of what these numbers actually. But you don't want to have that many billionaires. And you especially don't want to have billionaires who just accumulate endlessly. I mean, as an economic system and a matter of policy, because billionaires don't spend money. A healthy economy is not GDP. A healthy economy is not Wall Street, no matter how many economists they put on TV to tell you that. It's not fucking Wall Street. It is the stability of your middle class and the spending power of your populace in general. The average American doesn't have the ability to handle a $500 emergency. You might have credit cards, but you don't have cash. What about 5,000? What about 50? You start raising that a factor of 10, and pretty quickly, almost the entire population is fucked. You have no accumulation of wealth. You have no accumulation of assets, except at the very top. But the problem is they take money and assets out of circulation, which devalues currency, but also destroys industry. That's why you tax the rich. And you use that to create those baselines for people. Because when the hierarchy of needs is met, when I have a roof over my head and access to food, when I meet the bare minimums, help give people access to food, help make sure they make a living wage, help it so they can afford their rent, both through subsidies and other things like that, but also through regulation to make sure those costs stay within reason for the cost of production, not 10x. You shouldn't be having crazy margins on fucking apartment complexes. It's a long play, not a short play. Those things are met. And those people spend money. They buy motorcycles, they buy RVs, they buy boats, they buy new clothes, they buy video games, they buy books, they buy things, they spend money, and that money goes to someone else, and now they make money and they spend money, and the economy moves and it circulates. The more billionaires you have, the worse your economy is, not because billionaire bad ethical brr, because these people accumulate and consolidate. They don't distribute. They don't spend, they invest. There's a very big difference. Oh, he spent 500 million of his own money. No, he bought a company that he gets to claim as an investment and then use that claimed investment to make his other investments worth more intrinsically, leverage those investments to get loans that you don't have access to, and never spend his own money. That's what he gets to do. He's not buying pizza at the local pizza parlor and helping that business stay afloat. But the moms and the pops and the kids in the area will, if they have money. That's why billionaire bad. That's what everyone should be fucking taught. That's what Joe Biden should have been teaching people. Is I'm going after those people for you. And here's how you benefit. These people broke the economy. COVID broke the economy. Look at all these broken things. Look at this mess that I inherited from Trump. And I'm trying so very hard to fix it. And I've got these traitors in my party who are doing everything they can, like Joe Manchin, who's a corrupt, unethical, horrible piece of shit. Him and his fucking daughter, look it up. Those people, cinema, you can go through the list. I have all these obstructionists here that are trying to help stop me from doing these very basic, very real things to help real people. Biden didn't do that. At no point in his presidency did he have a weekly press conference to tell people what he's doing. Some people call them fireside chats. I wonder if a guy ever tried that and if it ever worked well. Who knows? History. So he runs again. And then he's forced to drop out. And then they run Kamala. There's a lot of reasons Kamala didn't win. I'm not going to get into all of them. Some of them have to do with her being a double minority, black and Indian, and woman. So technically, I guess women are a minority, even though you're basically 50% of the population. So not really a minority, but we don't like to properly call her. I'm not going to go into it. She's a disenfranchised individual in three spots, especially a woman of color. That's not why she didn't win the election. It didn't help. It absolutely did not help. But that's not why she didn't win the election. She won the election because she ran a bad campaign. She ran a bad campaign because, like Democrats continue to do, you rely on neoliberals and think tanks, who, by the way, have a horrible record. They've always had a horrible record. You have people like, I forget his name. There's this James Carville. Fucking idiot. Carville's a moron. He's been a moron for years. They put him on TV, and the only reason they put him on TV is because he was loosely associated with the Clinton campaign, and Clinton won because Bill Clinton was charismatic as shit, and the guy he ran against wasn't. And the reason I'm calling him the guy he ran against is because most of you don't remember who the fuck it was either. That fucker went on Saturday late night TV, whichever fucking one it was, played the saxophone, and the race was over. And I'm being reductive, but I'm not being that reductive. Carville didn't, you idiots didn't do shit. You didn't run a good campaign. You had a ringer of a candidate. They've lost almost all their major elections since. They've done a horrible job of branding. These think tanks are worthless because they are trying to appeal to think tanks and donors, not to the American people. And they don't want to acknowledge that in order to appeal to the American people, you got to stop appealing to the think tanks and donors because they're the fucking problem. They're the ones screwing the American people. Well, she listens to those people. And She inherited a mess too. She had a horrible campaign that was way, way behind. She had to take it off in the middle. She didn't get to bring in her own people. I'm not saying it was all her fault, but she listened to those people. And she pivots and she relies on the most unreliable voting bloc in America, white women. And if you have a problem with me saying that, or you is a white woman, look at the statistics of how white women voted for Trump and fuck off. White women had nothing to gain voting for Trump. He's going to grab you by the pussy and sell you off to the nearest bidder. Pick an incel, you're going to be his property. That's what he's going to do to you. But that's also what she ran on. You ran on abortion. You didn't run on childcare. That was part of her policy. If you go look at Kamala Harris's policy package, it's one of the cleanest, most well thought out, well designed policy packages you will see. She had excellent policy, but that wasn't the branding. That wasn't the messaging. And that's why this is Democrats' fault, because they continue to make the same mistakes. You rely on platitudes and bullshit. They're the bad guys. They're deplorables. They're the evil. They're the problem. Da, da, da. It doesn't mean it's not true. Beto O'Rourke runs in Texas. Beto O'Rourke ran a terrible campaign. Really? Gun control is your main thing? Running in Texas? We know it's important. It is important. You should be talking about it. It shouldn't be your whole thing. Why the hell are you not running on the horrible grid and the horrible taxation and the way they take advantage of people and the fact that a bunch of your refineries are now the property of the Saudis because they sold it away, even though that's a major American asset and a huge security problem? No, you didn't run on all that stuff. You only ran on your one issue. But here's the problem about running on that one issue, and it's the same thing that bit Kamal in the ass. It's not that you're wrong. You're right. We need gun control. We need smarter gun laws. Period. We have a problem. We have cultural problems. We have a lot of problems. Abortion's a very real, very important issue, and not just because I want to kill babies, which is how idiots present it. Not ignoring the fact that, like, sometimes, you literally have a stillborn child in the womb and you need to remove it, but you can't because you idiots passed a bad law, and now you killed the baby and the mom. No, let's ignore those. Or this girl was raped by her stepfather, now has to carry the child to term. Like, no, let's ignore those because I'm going to be a piece of shit. Yeah, it's a super important issue. But here's the thing. It's also an issue, A, a lot of people are tired of, B, not a lot of people care for, and C, and this is the really sad part, people in general, but especially modern Americans, are so jaded and so selfish. Culturally, we are jaded and selfish as fuck. Your inflection point here is choosing to run on abortion as one of your main tickets and partnering with Cheney and going, we're going to get the conservative white women vote. No, you're not, sweetheart, because you're not running on anything they really care about. Some of them, it's an important issue, but most of them, it's not. They might go, yeah, no, that makes sense, but it's not going to drive them to vote for you. You want to drive them to vote for you? Take care of the kids, take care of groceries, help them get better jobs, do the things that benefit the people, and don't muzzle Waltz. You were at your peak. The two peaks for her campaign were when she almost motherfucked Trump on live TV. It was the most human moment she had. That was the most honest, visceral, relatable moment she had in that whole campaign when she almost motherfucked him. God, I wish she'd actually let it out. But when Waltz called them weird, you guys found gold because they are weird. You're obsessed with women's bodies. You're obsessed with saying a woman without a child shouldn't even have a right to vote. That's a weird fucking statement. And the problem here is it's the continuous issue for the Democratic Party. You don't understand branding. You don't understand messaging. You don't understand marketing. You don't understand that you have a overworked, underpaid, pissed off, jaded, undereducated, frustrated, fuck you populace who does not like either party and is waiting for someone to come in and say, screw the elites, I'm going to take care of you. And you refuse to go to them and you keep trying to go after swing voters. A myth. Swing voters are a myth. Most of your swing voters are not swing voters. They don't swing for you. They either don't vote or they vote Republican. The real swing voters are the did not vote crowd. They voted for Obama. They would have voted for Bernie. They definitely didn't vote for Hillary. They did vote for Biden because they were tired of COVID, and they didn't vote for Kamala because you didn't give them reasons to. Recently, they voted for Mamdani. You know what he ran on? Real everyday stuff that relates to real people, and all the fear mongering and the racism and holy shit, the racism and the bullshit, it didn't work. He got 20% more votes than the guy that came in second. He got a million votes. The other guy got 800,000. Do the math. That's a huge margin of victory. For a mayoral candidate to get a million votes, that's a huge turnout. Why? Because he actually talked about real, doable, achievable things that help everyday people. There's your policy. That's why all of this is Democrats' fault. Because every time you have an opportunity to fix things, to turn things around, to give people hope, to make people's lives better, you fuck it up. And that's been the whole key. The entire Republican strategy, the entire Christo fascists, which is now who the Republicans are, not who they always have been, but 100% who they are now. Their entire playbook and strategy is around relying on the fact that you are fucking idiots, that you do not understand branding, that you do not understand messaging. And here's the really sad part. And I've been going for a little bit over an hour here. These last parts won't be as long, but that history kind of has to be told. Understand the magnitude and the consistency with which the Democratic Party has fucked up. Do you understand how badly you have to manage messaging and branding and policy for the American people to look at Donald Trump, who they all knew for 30 years as the dumb game show host who has the IQ of soup? Let's make that guy president. Instead of looking at how awful and racist people are, which, yes, there's some awful racist people in this country, but you know what there's a lot more of? A lot more pissed off, jaded people that just want someone who isn't part of the system because maybe if he's going to fuck me, he'll at least use lube. That's where you've put them. They don't trust you because you've given them no reasons to. Because everything's a purity test. And the focus is never make people's lives better. It's what's my agenda and how do I get more donors and how do I make my donor happy? And the reality is the donors will adjust to you because they need you more than you need them. Because someone's got to get elected at some point. And if they don't have a connection to that elected person, they have no leverage and they have no ability to ask for favors. So they will continue to donate and they will continue to donate to both sides because they have resources and they want benefits. You have the leverage, not them, you morons. Let's get to segment two. This one will be a little bit, actually, the next couple will be a lot faster. So I've mentioned Trump a few times. Now is the time to really talk about the Trump side. So Donald Trump is an idiot. Flat out, he's an idiot. He's a great marketer. He's charismatic in a like, oh my god, I can't believe you said that, like dumbass way, but it's still like he has energy. He has a physical charisma, not in that like he's physically imposing. He's the exact opposite. He's a ball of goo. But he's performative. He makes faces. He does things that create a reaction. All of that's true. But who are like the Trump supporters? It's very easy to look at Trump supporters and go, oh, well, they're all racist, red hat wearing, bigoted pieces of shit. And some of them are, period. And if that's you and you don't like that, first of all, you didn't watch this long. No matter how much I was shitting on Democrats, I was shitting on them for allowing you to exist. You probably at some point figured that out, even though you probably need instructions on how to tie your shoes, but you're still there. Fuck you. Like, again, racist, bigot, fuck you, piece of shit, the end. I don't care. I don't respect you. Yo, you're actually not entitled to your opinion, folks. We don't have to agree to disagree. We can just punch a Nazi. It is actually the correct response. Functionally, culturally, that is the correct response. Piece of shit, knock them out, move on. The correct response is disdain. No, you're a piece of crap. We don't want to talk to you. No, you don't get a point here. No, you don't get some fake debate where you say a bunch of factually incorrect, horrible shit and then peacock around like, prove me wrong, like a fucking moron. No, no, you don't engage with that person. You call them an idiot. You ask them to please go get an education and grow up, and then you move on because they can't handle this thing. They want you to debate them because it helps legitimize their bullshit. You have that segment. That's not all of them. If you noticed when I went through that whole all those 10 inflection points for how we got here, and a lot of them are the failings of the Democrats because that is how we got here. You failed to provide an alternative, you failed to take care of other people, you left the door open to the other side to eventually the worst elements to take over because you provided no viable, reliable, trustable alternative. Well, a lot of the people that support Trump are just lifelong Republicans. And again, this is important to understand. America is filled with low information voters. You've got a fuck ton of people who don't really know how their government works, don't really know what their government does, believe what is ever told to them to a pretty significant degree, and are going to vote the way they're going to vote unless given a really good reason not to. That part's important because that's how they're going to vote. I'm team red, I'm team blue. In America, politics is sports. And there's a very select group of people that have happen to own most of the media networks, by the way, who've worked really, really, really hard to foster that environment and that culture. Because identity politics is a trap. It's a trap both sides fall into. Democrats fall into more because, again, they're very stupid. And a lot of them are elitists. Again, they're boardroom think tank dipshits instead of actually just talking to people and going, "Oh, so if I did that, you'd like me. I should probably do that anyway. It would make your lives better." And that's the job. A huge chunk of Republicans are just people who are like, I'm going to vote Republican no matter what, unless I either hate the candidate or there's a Democrat that appealed to me. Like, there are a lot of lifelong Republicans who did vote for Obama. Some were just like, I think it would be cool to have the first black president. I don't hate this guy. Go for it, buddy. Some were like, I really like this hope and change. Fuck those rich assholes. And those same people eventually turned all the way to the other side because he failed them. He failed to deliver. However you want to look at that, that is what happened. He failed them. He did not provide hope nor change, and so the pendulum swung in the other direction. Yes, you have your racist ass hats. You have the people that buy all the Trump memorabilia, and 12 of them together have four teeth. Sure, you have those people. But we don't have 70 million of those. We have a lot more people who are just low information voters who voted the way they were most likely and historically would vote because they weren't given a really good reason to vote the other way. And if you want to convince someone who's going to predominantly go one direction to go your direction, you must provide them a reason of incentive why. And that didn't happen. And so predictably, that segment, let's just, I'm bullshitting numbers, but let's say 40% of the voting populace, which again did not vote, wins almost every election in America. The largest voting bloc is fuckers who don't vote for a variety of reasons, but most of them is because they don't trust either party at this point, and they have no reason to. 40% of the voting populace is going to vote Democrat, and 40% is going to vote Republican. So, of those people that are predisposed to vote, how does that other 20% get split up? What Trump has done is he's grabbed 10 to 15% of that block and he's converted them into his loyal followers, people who, for a variety of reasons, whether they're pissed off former Bernie fans, pissed off former Obama fans, racists, pick your stuff. There again, the block, his hardcore fans, it's a mix of things. But he's built that up. And so when Democrats win, like in 2020, they win because you got a sizable chunk of did not vote to come to your side and change those numbers. When you lose, like they did in 2024, it's because you lost those people. Voter turnout was lower. You didn't go and get the youth vote. You went against yourself and what even gave you a chance of winning the white women vote. And you're never winning the white man vote simply because an overwhelming number of white men who vote doesn't mean all white men suck. Guys, I'm a white man. I hate the piece of shit. Doesn't mean all they are. And again, the largest voting bloc is did not vote. If the largest voting bloc is did not vote, a lot of white men didn't vote for the fucker. But of the people that did, more of them predominantly voted for him than voted for Kamala because there's something in it for them. Oh, I can grab women by the pussy? I like pussy. You have a lot of assholes who think like that. You got a lot of insecure fucknuts who think like that. You got a lot of broke young people, especially broke older millennials, Gen X, those groups are looking at it going, these the economy is fucked. I got no hope. I'm never going to be a homeowner. I got no pension. My retirement is shit. He said he's going to make groceries cheaper. Biden didn't do that. Fuck it. I'll vote for him. Kamala was part of Biden's regime. Why didn't she fix it? Well, she was the vice president. She didn't have any authority. But again, low information voters. That's who a big chunk of your populace is. Then you have the third group. They're opportunists. They heard things that were in it for them, and they voted that way because they thought they were going to get a tax break or they were going to get cheaper groceries or things like that. But like those are your three groups. You have your racists, you have your pieces of shit, you have your scumbags. Those are absolutely Trump supporters. You have a huge voting bloc that is just they're going to vote Republican no matter what, and you have your opportunists, the people that are just in there because they think there's in it something for them. You want to get those votes, you got to give them something that's in it for them. I want to go to segment three. So I oscillate personally when it comes to where we are right now. We have first of all, we are in a recession. We were basically in a recession with Trump turnover. He has completely nuked the economy. The odds by the day are growing that we are going to hit a depression. Um, and the whole government shutdown is the one of the few smart things Democrats have done for a very long time for a large variety of reasons. But here's the reality. The only reason we have a shutdown is because A, they don't want the Epstein list to be revealed, but also more importantly, B, his big, beautiful bill, which is a $4.3 trillion tax cut for the uber wealthy and rich. Well, it already cut the funds for SNAP. Your benefits are gone. It cut Medicare massively and Medicaid massively. And that's leading to a lot of rural clinics having to shut down. And now they want to make sure that they also get rid of subsidies that are built into the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, for those who don't know, they're the same fucking thing. They want to get rid of those subsidies so that the insurance companies can take the premiums that they're already charging. Because again, the big winners from that law were them. That's part of the problem. Well, now they're not going to have those subsidies. Well, they don't want to make less money. They're not going to charge you anything reasonable. No, 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 no. I'll just charge you triple. I'm not going to get the subsidy anymore. I'm getting my money from somewhere. They don't care if you die. You're a number on a spreadsheet, man. I'm just trying to get my quarterlies up so I can get my $30 million bonus. That is all the executives of that company care about. They don't care if you fall over and die. Period. Do not fool yourself into thinking for a nanosecond they give a fuck about you. That's what the shutdown's about. They already took away food. They already are closing clinics. They are already killing people, not to mention all the stuff with ICE. And now they also want to make your health insurance more expensive so that they can kill more people and they can hurt more people. And they can put more people in internment camps and labor camps because they're building those too. And I'm not making stuff up. You can look at the fuck up. Google exists. Go knock yourself out. So for all of that and that terrible situation and the dumbass trade war with China and the idiotic trade wars with Canada and Mexico and our other allies that have destabilized our trade and massively brutalized our economy that was already on the ropes. The removing of the CHIPS Act, the removing of the green energy subsidies, which those subsidies, whether you believe in climate change or not, which is really just do you understand science or no, huge positive economic windfalls from all of those green acts because they created tons of jobs. Coal and gas don't create jobs, they just create money for existing billionaires. They help stock portfolios. That's it. The green stuff was creating jobs and creating work, which, as we talked about a little bit earlier, means money flows in the economy. People spend money, which means other people get money, which means they now have money to spend, and that helps all the businesses. It helps the economy recover. Good things. He's killed all that. There's a part of me that just wants to respond to hours and hours of people, blocks deep, waiting in line at food banks. People who, and I was one when I was a kid, fellow trailer park Americans. You get told, oh my God, food stamps, black people. That's what they do. They push that bullshit. The reality is way more white people on it. Poor white people. Again, you guys keep getting duped. And I do genuinely struggle with the fight between, hey, you voted for this. I hope you have the day you voted for. And when your grandmother is dying in the hospital, remember Orange Fuhrer. That was the way to go. Husky Hitler, yeah. Mango Mussolini. He's more Mussolini than Hitler. Hitler was competent. Different history lesson. I do struggle between that and sympathy and empathy. Because, like I keep saying, a lot of these people, again, there's the pieces of shit, but that's not everybody. It's not even the majority. A lot of these people don't know any better. They've been indoctrinated, they've been lied to, they've been given false information, they haven't been given the other side properly or in a way that's digestible or the way that's provable. They haven't seen any benefit, so they're not going to believe it. They're low information, not all low intelligence, but low information. They've been misled, fooled, bamboozled, and part of me genuinely feels bad for them because a lot of you are going to die and you are going to suffer and you are going to lose family members and you fucking voted for this shit. You can't blame black people. Sure, shit can't blame black women. Again, look at the voting statistics from the last election. The one group that can say no one can blame us is black women. Can't blame Latinos, although Latin men, you fuckers, you fucked up a bit. Look at the stats, you fucking idiots. Well, he's not going to deport me. Well, he fucking is. He's a racist to his core. You should have read more. Reading is hard. That's segment three. Here's the last segment. And I want to try to end this on a little bit of positivity as much as I can. I mean, we are the shithole country right now. So, yes, it could be worse, but we're rapidly going towards worse. How do we turn this around? So, I mean, this would probably be its own hour-long video to really break down, but I just want to talk at a high level, like conceptual and approach-wise. China does something called 5-year plans. First of all, if you think like, oh, China, they're communist. China has been communist for a long time. They've been capitalists for decades. Again, capitalism, communism, socialism, stop falling for buzzwords that you don't understand and you can't define and you can't explain. Because they're being fed to you because you don't understand them and you can't define them and you can't explain them. And that's why they use them to manipulate you. It's the same reason why certain people use 5-syllable words when a 2-syllable word would work, because it makes them sound smarter and important and it makes you more likely to listen to them. The problem is they're saying dumb shit. They're just saying in a way that makes you sound like they know what the they're talking about, which is why I'm not making this hour and a half long video like a term paper, because it's pretentious and it's not helpful and also just frankly not enjoyable and I want to cuss. I did cuss in my term papers, but not as much. Can we turn this around? The short answer is yes. I'm not going to get into how the Democrats can themselves. I'm not going to talk about recent events of the elections. Again, it's going to make this a 4-hour video, and I've already been going for a while. China does 5-year plans, and they do it with focus and intent. China invests in their businesses and their companies. They don't invest in one company. They don't give all their government subsidies and contracts to one company, Tesla. Literally, how Musk built his fortune. Again, look it up. It's public record. It's not that hard to find. He's not the brilliant businessman you think he is. He's really good at taking government contracts and then using that to fund himself, to build branding, and then eventually actual make money on his products, but in the meantime also stack more and more government contracts. Like, but they don't just do that with one company. They do that with a bunch of companies. And they do it with a standard. Hey, we want to grow the economy in this way. We want more real estate. We want more construction. We want to build things. You make a company, you apply it, you apply for the money. You show you have a plan, you show you have employees, you show you can do it. We'll help finance that. And what we get in back is infrastructure. China's infrastructure blows ours out of the water. It is embarrassing. And infrastructure is this big, dirty word to stupid people. I had an argument with a guy years ago on Twitter who I won't say his name because we don't talk anymore, and that's totally fine. I don't have an issue with him. We don't talk because it got exhausting. Hey, infrastructure. What's up with infrastructure? Someone's got to pay for it. Yeah, no shit, dumbass. But that's the value of infrastructure. When Eisenhower put in the highway system, the interstates, all of that, yeah, it costs money. And it generated money 1,000 times over what it cost. That's the value of infrastructure. You put in transportation, you put in bullet trains. Well, if people can get from A to B quicker and easier, and if that is subsidized or helped in ways that makes it easier and affordable for all people to access it, then their radius to work is larger, which means more jobs are available, which means better candidates for the companies, but also means more businesses in general exist. And if you have all these mesh points, you can open up restaurants and different types of small personal businesses for people at those mesh points, and you create the flow of income and economy. You create these mesh points and interaction points and business opportunities. You do these things. Here's another great infrastructure thing we did in America. Everyone benefits from it. This video, you're watching it. If you're watching it, if you made it this far, you ever heard of the internet? The internet was infrastructure. The internet was government infrastructure. It was backed and funded and helped made accessible and open to everyone by government dollars. That's infrastructure. It's super fucking important. China invests in infrastructure. We need a 5 year plan. You really need a 10-year plan, but we need at minimum a 5 year plan. And here's the really sad thing: Joe was a bad president in a lot of important ways, but in some very important ways was an exceptional president because he actually made one. The infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, the Green Plan, all of these things weren't just, oh my God, it says green. That means the hippies are winning because you're stupid. No, you're creating jobs, you're creating industry, you're creating money flowing through the economy. Spend a dollar to spend a dollar to spend a dollar to spend a dollar. The dollar travels to 10 people. 10 people got that dollar. It moved, it circulates in the economy. It doesn't just accumulate. The thing he fucked up was should have also taxed the billionaires and taken some of that money and used it to help fund some of those other things and create more movement and more infrastructure and catch up this 30-year backlog we have of not investing in our country. That's what you need. You need a real 5 year plan. If we do that, if somehow, some way, we can stop this Project 2025 attempt to turn a representative republic, representative democracy, you pick your fucking term. I don't care. I'm too lazy. It's fucking midnight. You take that, and they're trying to make it into an autocracy. It's been kind of a pseudo oligarchy because Citizens United and a bunch of other stuff for a long time, but they're trying to remove all of that, all the checks and balances, centralized power, complete banana republic bullshit. That's the goal. Now, they haven't accomplished it yet, but make no mistake, that is the goal. And they have to accomplish it before the old codger rolls over and dies. Because the moment he dies, the gig is up. The cult is out. JD Vance, no one's following him. The moment he has to talk to people and try to convince them of things, they die. Because not only is he boring, he's obnoxious. And to quote somebody who got muzzled unnecessarily, he's weird. And not like a funny, oh, he's interesting weird, but just like can you just not talk weird? Like you can't talk pretentiously to people with that punchable of a fucking face. You just can't. But that's the goal for them. They want to remove the checks and balances and establish lasting power while they have the opportunity to do it so that you can't vote them out, so that you can't make things change, so that you can't change things. But if somehow we manage to block those things and block the worst case scenario where, God forbid, some people, shall we say, revoke some subscriptions of some necessary individuals, however we end up getting there, if we stop all those things, then that's the answer. Can we do it? Yes. This can be turned around and faster than you think because we are still the most powerful empire on earth. We do still have the world's largest military. We are still coast to coast a massive country with enormous resources, personal and material. 350 million people. You could put through a Jobs Act. You could do a lot of things to help a lot of people in some very smart ways if you did it with intentionality and focus. But you got to get people in positions of power that care about helping people. You need more Bernies and more AOCs and less Ted Cruz's and less Donald Trump's and less JD Vance's. People who purely and entirely are there for power and prestige. And for the record, less Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's too, because again, power and prestige, but you're not there for the people. And if they try to say, oh, well, they were there for the people, they did. Look at their entire track record. They are there for themselves and for the idea and the appearance and playing the great game, but they're not there for the people. You serve at the privilege of the people. It's time we started making them act like it. And if we do that, yeah, we have a shot. If we don't, ugh, I'd really not rather think about it. But it is a reality that we will all have to deal with. If you made it through this entire video, I thank you. As I said at the beginning, I made this as much for me as I did for anybody else. Um, but this is how we got here. This is the reality of where we are. You don't agree with what I had to say, you can put anything you like in the comments. And if you agree with things, you can put it in the comments. I'll engage with anything worth engaging with. Um, you come with smoke, you're going to catch some. But, and again, that's fine. Like I said, I didn't want this to be a term paper, and this would have been an 8-hour video if I really went into the individual details. But this is the timeline. Like, just to sum it up, for 25 years, you've had a group of people who have watched the deterioration of the control of evangelicals and Christians and white supremacists. Their power has been declining over that period of time. They're they were moving towards being essentially an endangered species or extinct, and systematically and intentionally seized the seats of power. But they did so only because the quote unquote opposition party provided no opposition. They have won by default, not because they're winning people over and making people's lives better and making, helping the average person. The average person's life is worse under Trump. It was his first term, it is his second term. That's not what helped them. The biggest reason why these people exist and had an opportunity at the halls of power in the first place is very simple. You had 8 years where we were supposed to get hope and change, and we got no hope and we got no change. And there were plenty of opportunities for it. And now people don't trust the other side and they don't believe those people. And when you have people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and, the sub speaker of the House, I forget his fucking name, the elf looking, no charisma, no morals, worthless sack of, anyway. Um, you have all those people. It doesn't make the American people go, wow, I really want to support these guys. I believe they'll take care of me. And that's how you get here. Again, we have 350 million people. We've got less than 500 billionaires. If the American people got behind somebody they believed in, that actually rallied them and activated them, this billionaire problem wouldn't exist very long. We would have had our let them eat cake moment decades ago. That's what Occupy should have been. And you let them distract you. And you let them convince you that it was someone else and it wasn't them. And it's been them the whole time. Hopefully now, maybe finally we learn our lesson. We'll see. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, comment section if you want to share anything. Most when I do whenever I do post on here will be sports or video game stuff whenever I get around to it. But yeah, put your thoughts in the comment section if you want to, and here were mine.